Video was well watched. Yes. Yeah. You know, we do live in an industry where you learn a lot from testing. Whether the test goes well or whether the test goes poorly, it's this valuable information for you to then do the next iteration. And I think the comment that Greg made earlier about risk adverse as a society is really something to keep in mind as we try and find that good balance of policies that allow you to do this testing that we need to do in our industry in a very safe and mindful way, but yet allow us the freedom to continue on that learning curve, because it is very important for the industry. And I think you've seen some of that today. Our next speaker is Richard DalBello from Virgin Galactic. He serves as the Vice President of Business Development and Government Affairs for Virgin, another company that started here in California with a very innovative small team and now building up to send people into suborbit. And I'm very excited about what's going to happen just from a sort of sociology viewpoint when we get more people who've experienced space and had the chance to look at our planet. I think we're going to have some very interesting movements, sort of like what happened back in the 60s when we saw those first pictures of the Earth from the moon. I'm really, really interested in this, and you guys are doing some great things. Richard has been at the company for about 6 months now? 3? It's been, oh my goodness, okay, 3 months. I first actually met Richard when he was at OSTP. He was there managing some of the science and technology policy activities there, and before that spent some time with Intelsat as well as the Department of Commerce. So there's a long history of understanding, again, how technology and policy intersect. But at Virgin, he's working on business development. Virgin is looking to expand their technology into other areas, which, of course, I'll let you come up and talk about, but it's very exciting. So let me get out of the way before I say, Richard.
Thank you very much. And thanks to the governor and all the assemblymen and senators for their invitation to come here today and for their support that we received. We have received wonderful encouragement and support here for the last couple of days, and we're looking forward to working with you all to doing more and greater things as we go forward. So I'm the new guy. I never get to say that, so I never get tired of saying it. I'm the new guy. I'm proud to be here with my colleagues from Lockheed, Northrop, Boeing, Honeywell, and SpaceX, of course, and to stand up here. We're a new company here in California and here in the world. Richard Branson, who of course the founder of Virgin Galactic, could have gone anywhere in the world. He came here to California, and one of the first reasons was that Scaled Composites, which is a company that was referred to by our colleague from Northrop, which is now part of the Northrop family. Scaled had been doing some really innovative work, and so on the launch vehicle, which will take the humans to orbit. And to key off what Sandy just said, I think in the entire history of human spaceflight, there may have been something on the order of 500 people that have gone to orbit. We have 700 people signed up now for our launcher, for our what we call our spaceship product. And we're looking forward to a time when people can go to space whenever they want, if they want, and they don't have to be a professional astronaut to do it. Just quickly, we have 3 product lines we're working on. On the far right is the winged vehicle we call the White Knight. That was a scaled composite concept and execution. On the left is the spaceship that will take 6 passengers to 100 kilometers in space. As you know, we had a tragic accident last year in October, and we have the second spaceship is almost done, should be done this summer. We have taken over all the manufacturing responsibilities from Scaled Composites at this point, so we'll be the manufacturer for this vehicle and future vehicles for both White Knight and the spaceship. And in the middle is the new product I want to talk about, which is a very small launcher. So Matt talked about SpaceX is going to the very next big level with the Falcon Heavy, which is going to carry how much? 53 metric tons to 53 tons to low Earth orbit, which is, I have to get an invitation to that first launch. That is going to be spectacular. We're at the very, very far other end of the spectrum. We're looking at a small launch vehicle that'll take maybe 150 to 200 kilograms to low Earth orbit. So for a different purpose, but we can talk about that in a minute. Again, we're committed to California. We have our main manufacturing facility in Mojave. We have our we actually have all our test stands out in Mojave also. And we just opened a few weeks ago our new Long Beach facility, which is where we will build the new small launch vehicle. With the ribbon cutting, we had a great turnout from the community. We also had a job fair with the ribbon cutting for the facility, and we had 6,000 people show up for what is going to be 100 job openings that we had. We hope by the end of this year to have 500 folks in the state, 500 employees here in California. So Spaceship Two, you saw in the Northrop video, you saw the Spaceship Two launch. Again, we are hoping to be back in flight back in test by the end of this year and back in flight by the end of next year. And yes, they are still taking reservations if you'd like to get in line. We also have another product line. We're working with this very same vehicle. We are in dialogue with NASA and others about using the spaceship for research. So instead of flying humans, we have a configuration where you can fly this fully loaded with experiments. NASA's already purchased one dedicated ride, and we look forward to developing this market as we go forward. We think there's a lot of interest in doing this, getting access to space, and it sort of builds as a stepping stone. So you can start out with research on the ground, and then you can move to a limited duration microgravity, and then you can move, if you have a compelling rationale, to doing investigation on the space station. And we think that's a stair step that doesn't exist today that could be very interesting. I think it's obvious for those of us who've been around for at least 15 or 20 years that the world has changed dramatically and significantly. As we've been sort of on this planet, everything is changing. And so, of course, you would expect that it would also start to change the space industry. On the left, you have one of the GOI remote sensing satellites. It was launched in 2008, weighed on the order of 2,000 kilograms, and it had about half-meter ground resolution. So in 2013, Skybox launched SkySat-1, who weighed 100 kilograms and had about a meter ground resolution. So again, not the same, but the first satellite cost well north of $250 million, and the second satellite cost less than 10. So you had we're seeing a dramatic shift in what's capable, and now there's been an explosion in the universities and also sponsored by NASA and the Defense Department, explosion in the small satellites. Universities are doing a ton of CubeSats these days, so it's a project that students can actually work on and fly before they graduate. We are now seeing these small form function satellites being considered for everything up to and including planetary exploration. There will always be a role this is the diversification of the number and types of satellites will continue. There will always be a role for the very big, very powerful satellites. Something like a James Webb telescope you can't do in a small sat. It's just a different form of science. But there's a bunch of stuff you can do, including advanced weather, again, remote sensing. So it's a very exciting time to be in the industry and watching the small satellite industry evolve. But the one thing that the small satellite industry does not have is a small launch vehicle. There are no cost-effective small launch vehicles. So one of the things that once we developed the White Knight, that Richard Branson got excited about was, could we build a small launch vehicle that could fly on the same airplane? And so we are, and this is what the facility in Long Beach is going to be working on, this product line. So we think that there will be a strong market for this product, both commercially. We have companies like Planet Labs, Skybox. We're in conversations with a half dozen others who want to build satellites in this category. Right now, what they have to do is they they aggregate smaller satellites and they launch together as a secondary payload on larger launch vehicles. That may make sense. One of the things that I'm not going to talk about today is that Virgin Group, not Virgin Galactic, my company, but Virgin Group, the parent organization, also just made a recent investment in a satellite constellation called OneWeb. It's 460 plus satellites in low Earth orbit designed to provide communications. And again, that's a product where it will need both a mix of large vehicles and it will need some dedicated small vehicles. So we think that's an exciting market. And again, that market will be based in part here in California. So I always try to mention the issue of regulation and how important it is to innovation. And I think one of the most important things when the government looks at new space startups is to ask the question, do we need to regulate? The if and when question is critical. In their wisdom, and you so seldom get to say this, but the U.S. Congress, in their wisdom, a number of years ago, decided that, I was waiting for that. So they decided a number of years ago that they would put a moratorium on the regulation of passenger safety on spaceships. That doesn't mean they had a moratorium on third-party safety or safety of people uninvolved in the launch, but for people who choose to fly on an experimental vehicle like this, they decided, let's wait to see how the market develops before we start to regulate, because we don't want to control how the market develops by imposing regulations in advance. So I think asking the question, is regulation needed? And where it is, turning to something like industry consensus standards, where you're working collaboratively with industry to find what is the right level of safety, what is the right level of protection for either the public or for the participating entities. And the industry will actively participate. We're very aggressively participating in the Commercial Spaceflight Federation, which is a group in Washington, D.C., which represents many of the new space companies, and we are involved already in proposing draft regulations. And then finally, simplifying the regulatory process. It's not a California issue, but it affects California industry. If you've got a new idea, you've got to go to the whole alphabet soup in Washington, D.C., to the FCC, to the FAA, to NOAA, to the White House, and you've got to make, for young companies who don't have government affairs groups, this is bewildering how you do this. So simplicity in what you do. And so I would just like to say, along with my august colleagues, that it's a pleasure to be here. It's exciting to be a new space company in California working in the long, proud heritage that existed here. And we look forward to being here and innovating and hiring, and we look forward to being your partner as we go forward. Thank you.